Is this the Scotland team to finally genuinely compete for a Six Nations title? I mean, that's the question we've been asking of Scotland for at least the last two Six Nations. You never feel like they're quite able to make that step up and seriously challenge the best teams in the competition, Ireland and France at the moment. Is this the team to finally do it? I guess we'll find out. I have my doubts, but Gregor Townsend announced his squad for the Six Nations yesterday. And when I look at Scotland, they feel settled to me, particularly when you compare to Wales, to England, teams that are in transition. Scotland always feel like a pretty settled squad. I think it's been that way for a while. It was the same at the World Cup, and I think it's the same now. I think it's epitomised by someone like WP Nel still being part of that squad. And do you know what? Fair play to him. 37 years old, still in there, international rugby, trying to do a job for them. I think it also speaks to issues that Gregor Townsend and Scottish rugby faces in terms of the pathways, but I'll come on to all that later in the video because I think there are a number of interesting things to talk about when it comes to Scotland, the Six Nations, and this squad that Gregor Townsend has selected. So welcome back to the channel. I'm Alfie. If you haven't been here before, great to have your company. If you want to drop a like on the video to give it a little boost, I massively appreciate that. And also, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you don't miss a thing. And Scotland fans, comment down below, what do you make of this squad? And in answer to my question, is it a squad that can finally compete for the title? I don't know. We'll get onto it. So as I say, it's a settled squad, and it is a settled squad, but there are changes here as well. And there are some significant changes, I think. A few we weren't expecting. No Hamish Watson or Chris Harris. Now, Hamish Watson, I think there will be a lot of fans that want to see him in there. He's a crowd favourite, isn't he? The style of rugby that Hamish Watson brings, when he gets the ball in his hand, the legs are pumping, smashing through tackles. Like, he's one of the most popular players. There are always going to be fans that want to see him there. I can understand why. He has had injuries. And to me, it kind of feels like this has been coming in a way. A lot to do with injuries. Since he was part of the Lions team, gradually he hasn't quite been a nailed-on starter for Scotland. I wonder why that is. Scotland fans might have more of an insight, more of a view on it than me. I think it's partly because of the competition in that back row area. I actually think it's an area of strength at the moment for Scotland. You look at Rory Darge, Jack Dempsey. I thought Matt Fagerson was outstanding on the weekend against Exeter in the Champions Cup. Jamie Ritchie obviously there as well, and I will come on to him in terms of the captaincy and what's going to happen there. So Hamish Watson misses out. A bit of a surprise. I think people will be upset, but I do think Scotland have good options available despite Watson missing out. Is it down to injuries and his form dropping off? Has he been dealt a harsh hand here by Gregor Townsend? You can let me know. The other one is Chris Harris. Now, the most interesting part of this for me, with Chris Harris not being part of the team, is defensively, he's always been so key for Scotland. And people talk about him as being one of the best outside centres from the defensive point of view there is in international rugby. It's what got him onto the Lions tour to South Africa. People used to speak about Jonathan Joseph in a similar way, Gaël Fickou for France as well, that outside centre that is brilliant in such a tough channel to defend, of drifting across, of organising the defence, stopping opposition attacks, getting to the outside edge. So I think that is a blow. When you look at the centres for Scotland, Tuipulotu is there, Redpath, Hutchinson and Hugh Jones. Hugh Jones has been playing a lot of wing, partly because of injuries. Tuipulotu, is he going to be playing inside centre? No, or outside centre? Normally inside, has been playing 13. Hutchinson, a good option there. Redpath playing some great stuff for Bath. I like the options they have there. I wonder what the absence of Chris Harris potentially does to the defence. And I know that Tuipulotu was mainly the 13 last year as well. So actually maybe with Harris, we could say a similar thing to what I said about Hamish Watson. This is a gradual thing that has been building up to this moment, in that he hasn't been the nailed-on 13 for Scotland. Certainly for last year, it was Hugh Jones and Tuipulotu, which makes Jones mainly playing on the wing for his club interesting for what Gregor Townsend does there. But I think those two omissions are talking points and do raise some questions, potentially, particularly the Harris one, about where this Scotland team is. In terms of rounding off just some of the new faces, Alec Hepburn, previously with England, is called up. Aaron Reid, who plays for Sale, Will Hurd, the tight head prop, and Harry Patterson, who is wing or fullback, on good form for Edinburgh. Haven't seen a huge amount of him, as my attention mainly is with the Gallagher Premiership, but on good form, excited to see how he goes. With Alec Hepburn, I mean, he's one of those that was capped under Eddie Jones, got a few caps, it was years ago now, hasn't been called up since. So with the change in eligibility rules, doing the stand-down period, he can be called up. And Aaron Reid as well, who was linked with England. He has gone the other way. There's plenty of others, Finn Smith, Tom Roebuck, who people thought maybe could end up in the Scotland squad, who have been named in the England squad today. Aaron Reid is quick. He adds pace into that back line. He has become a regular, consistent Premiership performer in a good Sale side. I'm excited to see what he can do if he gets his chance at international rugby. But I mentioned it earlier in the video. Pathways is a massive question for Scotland at the moment. Once again, Gregor Townsend is having to look elsewhere. Alec Hepburn, Aaron Reid, guys in the Premiership, rather than being able to utilise the young talent coming through in Scotland. And you speak to anyone involved in Scottish rugby, you speak to the journalists that cover them. Gregor Townsend has been very forthright when asked about this previously. The pathways and the quality coming through is not good enough now for Scotland. And I think it's the biggest worry for Scotland. When you look at this generation, we've seen Stuart Hogg retire, but you've still got Finn Russell there, Hamish Watson, who's now out of the squad. They've had this brilliant generation. When they do all age and step away, who's coming through? And I think that's such a challenge for Gregor Townsend, who deserves credit for how much I think he's got out of this Scotland team. The talent coming through has to be a concern. It just has to, and we'll keep talking about it. Realistically, it is going to require the structures in place to improve. It is going to be years down the line before they're able to fully correct that. You look at the performance of the Scotland under-20s, and it doesn't fill you with much faith that they are producing enough quality players to step up to international rugby. You look at the best teams in Europe at the moment, in Ireland and France, they have had good showings recently over the last few years in the under-20s. They have the pathway there. You look at England, and I suppose the bulk of that England team, who has been the England team over recent years, certainly the real core of the team that got to the World Cup final in 2019, the Itojes, the Farrells, the Fords, the Jamie George, they all came through a very successful England under-20 side. It is a key area that Scotland need to address. The final point I want to make in the video is captaincy, which could still be Jamie Ritchie. Gregor Townsend hasn't named his captain yet, which, I don't know, it's kind of fascinating. He said, I was listening to the interview he did on the BBC Scotland Rugby podcast, where he said it was about Jamie proving his fitness. So maybe Gregor Townsend's just looking at it and saying he's not sure if Jamie Ritchie is quite fit enough at the moment to be starting every game or be starting at the start of the championship because of the competition in that back row. He wasn't sure if he wanted him captain yet. Or is it something bigger shifting here? Are we going to see Scotland go down a different route with the captaincy? Because Jamie Ritchie, and I really like Jamie Ritchie, I like him as a player, I think he is a good captain. He has been questioned previously, as many people have before, he's not the only one, how he speaks to referees and whether he gets on the wrong side of referees, and some people feeling frustrated about the way in which he does that. So maybe there's nothing in that, but it was just something that came to mind when I thought Gregor Townsend looking at who might be the captain. I think it has more to do with the competition in the back row and whether Jamie Ritchie's fitness is in a position for him to start at the moment, I would have thought, but just to throw it out there, a different idea of something that could be influencing that as well. So is this a team to finally compete for Scotland? I'm not sure. I still look at them and wonder whether they are a bit light in some key positions to really have that ballast and muscle to beat the best teams in the world. That's often where they've come up short. We've seen them beat England now fairly consistently, beat the teams below them. It's when they face the challenge, as they did in that World Cup pool, brutal pool of those teams above them, that they haven't quite made the step up. Not sure they're quite there yet. Happy to be proven wrong. You can let me know your view in the comment section. Like the video, subscribe to the channel as well, and I'll leave it there, but see you in the next one.